All right, let's be honest, sometimes you look at a map and think, yeah, I could conquer that. And then common sense, or at least a quick Google search, reminds you about things like oceans, deserts, and other people's armies. But today we're going full geopolitical nerd and talking about the big leagues, the countries that are basically the tungsten cubes of global conquest, dense, unyielding, and really not worth trying to melt down. We're talking about nations that are essentially nuke-proof. Now, I know what you're thinking. Isn't that everyone after the bombs start flying? Well, not exactly, because while nuclear weapons are terrifyingly good at ruining everyone's day, actually holding on to a country after you've nuked it, that's a whole different kettle of irradiated fish. So join us as we delve into the fascinating world of nuclear arsenals, the kind of geography that would make a mountain goat nervous, and the webs of military alliances that could make a bowl of spaghetti look simple. We'll explore the 10 countries that are nearly impossible to conquer with nuclear weapons, even if you really wanted to, which, for the record, you absolutely should not. Seriously, don't even think about it. First up, we have the United States, the country with enough firepower to make a Death Star blush. We're talking thousands of nuclear warheads, enough to turn any potential invasion into a very short, very depressing sequel to Threads. But it's not just about the sheer quantity of planet-cracking explosives, it's about where they are. See, America's got this handy little thing called geography on its side, oceans to the east and west, and friendly neighbors, mostly, to the north and south. Good luck landing an invasion force with that. And if by some miracle you did manage to get past the nukes and the Navy SEALs, you'd then have to contend with the most well-funded military in the world, not to mention a civilian population where owning an AR-15 is considered as normal as apple pie. Oh, and did I mention mutually assured destruction? Yeah, that's still a thing. Basically, any attempt to nuke the US would trigger a retaliatory strike so devastating that, well, let's just say nobody wins. It's like trying to win an argument by setting your pants on fire. Technically possible, but ultimately pointless and messy for everyone involved. Next up is Russia, a country that's basically a Bond villain's lair come to life. They've got icy tundras, forests bigger than most countries, and enough vodka to drown an army. Though, in fairness, that last one might actually help an invasion. But the real showstopper, their nuclear arsenal, which is larger than a medium-sized moon and twice as intimidating. And if that wasn't enough, they've also got this delightful little contingency plan called the Dead Hand System. Essentially, if Russia detects a nuclear attack, this system automatically launches a counterstrike, even if everyone in charge is, shall we say, incapacitated. It's like a nuclear Roomba, except instead of cleaning your floors, it cleanses the earth in fire. Add to that a network of military alliances, a hardened population that's used to hardship like it's a houseplant, and well, you've got yourself a country that's about as conquerable as a bear riding a tank through a blizzard. Now, let's talk about China, a country with a history longer than your last internet argument and a population larger than most continents. They've spent millennia mastering the art of defense, from the Great Wall, which, spoiler alert, wasn't that great at keeping people out, to their modern-day underground Great Wall, a network of tunnels and bunkers so vast it makes the New York subway system look like a gopher hole. And don't forget their military, which is currently undergoing a glow-up so intense it would make a Kardashian jealous. But it's not just about manpower and subterranean real estate. China also boasts some seriously challenging geography, from the towering Himalayas to the sprawling Gobi Desert. It's like Mother Nature looked at a map and said, you know what this place needs? More things that can kill you. Add to that a healthy dose of we invented gunpowder swagger and enough economic clout to make Wall Street nervous, and you've got a recipe for a country that's not just difficult to conquer, it's basically impossible. Next we have Switzerland, a country that's known for chocolate clocks and being really, really good at staying out of other people's business. But don't let their fondness for neutrality fool you. These guys are basically the ninjas of geopolitical survival. They've got the Alps, a mountain range so beautiful it could make a dictator weep, acting as a natural fortress. And nestled within those majestic peaks are enough bunkers to make a doomsday prepper drool. Seriously, these guys have bunkers for their bunkers, but Switzerland's real strength lies in its people, who are trained from birth to be ready for anything, including, apparently, a full-scale invasion. We're talking mandatory military service, a population that's basically hardwired for guerrilla warfare, and enough hidden artillery to make a Bond villain blush. So while they might not have a massive nuclear arsenal, their commitment to armed neutrality makes them about as appealing to invade as a beehive filled with angry badgers. Now, let's talk about North Korea, a country that's often portrayed as a caricature, but is in reality a complex and isolated nation with a leadership that's really into dramatic pronouncements and, let's call it, aggressive self-reliance. They've spent decades building up their military, developing their own nuclear weapons program, much to the chagrin of, well, everyone, and generally giving the international community a serious case of anxiety. But beyond the bombastic rhetoric and the parades of synchronized soldiers, there's a reason why invading North Korea is about as appealing as hugging a cactus. They've got a mountainous, easily defensible terrain, a population that's been effectively trained to see invasion as an inevitability, and perhaps most importantly, the unofficial protection of China. It's like the geopolitical equivalent of that friend who always has your back, even if you're the one who started the bar fight. Next up is the United Kingdom, a country that's known for its tea, its royal family, and its uncanny ability to be both charming and terrifying at the same time. They may not have the geographical sprawl of Russia or the sheer manpower of China, but what they lack in size, they more than make up for in strategic cunning and the kind of military history that would make a Roman general blush. They've got a nuclear deterrent that's about as subtle as a brick through a window, delivered via submarines that are harder to find than a decent cup of tea in America. And let's not forget their network of alliances, which, thanks to their history as a global empire, is more extensive than the guest list at a Kardashian wedding. Plus, they're an island nation, which means any invasion force would have to contend with the Royal Navy, the unpredictable whims of the English Channel, and the very real possibility of being rained on. Now we come to India and Pakistan, two nuclear-armed neighbors locked in a geopolitical dance that's part rivalry, part cautionary tale. Both countries possess nuclear arsenals that could ruin everyone's day, and their shared history is, shall we say, complicated. But that very tension is part of what makes them both so difficult to conquer. It's the geopolitical equivalent of two porcupines trying to share a sleeping bag, uncomfortable for everyone involved. But ultimately, nobody wants to make the first move. Beyond the nukes, both countries boast formidable militaries, populations that vastly outnumber most invading forces, and a geography that ranges from the towering Himalayas to dense jungles to deserts hotter than a Vindaloo curry. In short, conquering either nation would be a logistical nightmare, a public relations disaster, and frankly, a terrible idea. Next up is Australia, a country that's basically one giant note factory when it comes to invasion. Seriously, it's like Mother Nature looked at the rest of the world and said, "Hold my beer, watch this. You want deserts? They've got deserts hotter than a kangaroo in a heat wave. Rainforests? Sure, but they come with enough venomous spiders to make a grown man cry." And don't even get me started on the ocean surrounding it, which is basically a giant aquarium for things that can kill you in increasingly creative ways. But let's say, hypothetically, you manage to survive the wildlife and make it past the outback without turning into a sun-dried husk. You've still got to contend with the Australian Defence Force, a lean, mean fighting machine with a healthy dose of, you call that a knife, energy. Plus, they've got a best mate agreement with the United States, which is a polite way of saying that any attempt to conquer Australia would likely involve a strongly worded letter from Uncle Sam, followed by, the full force of the US military. Now, let's talk about New Zealand, a country that's basically the Where's Waldo of global conquest. Seriously, it's so far away from everything. It's like the universe's standby button. But that isolation is also its greatest strength. It's like the geopolitical equivalent of that friend who moved to a yurt in the woods to get away from it all. Good luck finding them, let alone convincing them to care about your invasion plans. But it's not just about being geographically inconvenient. New Zealand also boasts strong alliances, a rugged landscape that's better suited to hobbits than tank battalions, and a population that's more likely to offer you a cup of tea and a biscuit than surrender. Plus, let's be honest, what are you really going to gain by conquering New Zealand? Bragging rights? A lifetime supply of lamb? It's just not worth the effort. Finally, we have Bhutan, a tiny nation nestled in the Himalayas that proves you don't need a massive military or a stockpile of nukes to be unconquerable. Their secret weapon? Being ridiculously charming and having the best real estate agent in the world, the Himalayas. Seriously, those mountains are like the ultimate do not disturb sign, except instead of a door hanger, it's a giant snow-capped mountain range that can kill you with altitude sickness. But it's not just about geography. Bhutan also enjoys the unofficial protection of India, a pretty good deterrent for anyone considering a hostile takeover. Plus, they've committed themselves to gross national happiness, which frankly is a much better national goal than being conquered by a foreign power. So while they might not have nukes or a military budget that could rival a Hollywood blockbuster, Bhutan's commitment to peace, happiness and really big mountains makes them about as conquerable as a cloud. So there you have it, 10 countries that are essentially the final boss level of global conquest. These nations, through a combination of nuclear deterrence, the kind of geography that could make a mountain goat sweat, and strategic alliances that would make a chess grandmaster jealous, have made themselves nearly impossible to conquer. But here's the thing about nukes and invasions. They're both terrible ideas, because even if you could somehow overcome the logistical nightmares, the ethical quandaries, and the sheer amount of paperwork involved in conquering a country, you'd then have to deal with a whole governing a population that probably hates you thing. And trust me, that's a whole other level of geopolitical hell. So instead of fantasizing about world domination, how about we all agree to focus on not destroying the planet? And if you're still feeling that itch for global rankings, let us know in the comments if you'd like a tier list of these countries based on pure survivability. Because who doesn't love a good tier list? Just, maybe let's leave the actual conquering to the history books.